Welcome back to our section on medicinal charcoal. We introduced this segment as supernatural remedies, and there are many simple natural remedies. But this particular segment will focus on charcoal as a medicinal. And for most people, most of the programs that we put on, and we put them on across all over America, Canada, Africa, India, and different places. For most people, the idea of charcoal being a medicinal is truly off the wall, as the expression goes. How could this thing possibly be something that I would use in a case of illness or emergency? Well, hopefully by the end of this program, you will see that this lowly, humble doctor is able to do supernatural things sometimes. Now, I am the author of the book charcoalremedies.com. And I thought I knew something about charcoal before I began writing this book. And I spent a whole winter writing it while Kimberly watched over the wood stove and kept us warm up in Nova Scotia, Canada. And just recently we had this book translated into Spanish. So I encourage you, if you're really interested in this and you want to arm yourself with as much information as you can on charcoal, either get the book or go to the website. And that's why we named it what we did. One night I was praying and I was asking God, what should we name this book? And I had this impression, just call it charcoalremedies.com. And so if they don't buy your book, they'll go to your website and they'll get all that information anyway. And some people who contact us more and more are from other countries, Africa and Asia, Australia. And so it's prohibitive to sell and send a book that distance. And more people are discovering about charcoal. And we're thankful for all of our customers, that is the people who have come to our programs and recommended this book to others. This is not a sales pitch. It's really to get you to go to the website and you'll get all the free information you need there, and plus a lot more, probably 100 times more than what's in the book, including all the stories that make charcoal real. Well, after writing the book, we got launched into a business, not intentionally, but by design, but not our design. We wrote the book, and at that time we put on seminars, and people would ask where they could get charcoal tablets or charcoal capsules, so forth. And so that turned into a business, and I'm not promoting our business here either. It's just that the interest in charcoal has grown over time, and now we have a warehouse, we have our own business, we have a family, and while we have a business, it's also a great opportunity for us to come and put on programs like this and teach people about this little product that's used in industry extensively. And once you learn a little bit more about it yourself, you'll be more impressed that there's a good reason why industry uses charcoal as much as it does. Here on the screen, you'll see this is actually one of our customers here. We live out in northwest Nebraska, and we're out in the just on the edge of the Pine Ridge. If you're ever out that way, be sure to drop in on us. Like one of our neighbors here has just come in on horseback, and he's picked up some charcoal for a sick horse. And before the end of this program, I'm going to show you some pictures of a sick horse that are actually, they're so amazing that I, even myself, as a one-time cowboy, have a hard time believing this could be possible. So here's our Pony Express heading out with his own delivery of charcoal. Now, charcoal is a safe medicine. We've used this acronym several times over and over again, and I don't know of a medicine, I don't know of a natural medicine, a supernatural remedy that is more simple and certainly not more scientific. There is more scientific research done on activated charcoal than any drug on the market. It is extensive, and it goes back for 100 years, and it continues every day of the week. Because of our business, has given us a unique window into the activated carbon or charcoal business and how it's used. And so every day of the week we get calls from universities, we get calls from the FDA, USDA, We get calls from research and development at universities that are looking into the use of charcoal in agriculture. We have scientists who've contacted us and asking us questions or looking for specific charcoals for this or that. And some of the things that we've been told are actually proprietary, and I can't share them with you. But I can say that in the next few years, if this research and development is going the way it is, there are going to be some revolutionary changes in how people are treated for sepsis, septic shock, by using something charcoal related. So charcoal is simple, but it is extensively scientific, and it doesn't matter where you go in this world, this round world, whether it's to the North Pole, the South Pole, or anywhere in between, you can find charcoal. It's accessible, it's affordable, and it's free of adverse side effects. There are no known registered negative adverse effects registered with the FDA. It is actually listed as Category 1, safe and effective, no known adverse side effects. Now, charcoal, people say, well, what are you talking about when you mention charcoal? Are you actually referring to that stuff after the campfire goes out? And that, that is exactly what we're talking about. Next time you and your friends or your family are out at a camp out and you're telling stories around the campfire, the next time you have one of these campfires, you're going to have a lot more to tell them about that charcoal that's left over at the end of the fire. Here it is. Our hero for the next maybe hour or so is charcoal. And if I ask you a question, you know what the answer is. It will be charcoal. Charcoal, how could this possibly be medicine in the 21st century? Well, I can tell you that charcoal is so scientific that it has a reserved seat on the first manned flight to Mars. You and I won't be going to Mars when that next rocket takes off with people on board, but charcoal is going to be on board that spacecraft. In fact, they couldn't go to Mars without charcoal being with them on their long distance ride. Well, history of charcoal goes back a long ways, farther than the Chinese fireworks, but it was used to make fireworks back in the discovery of black powder, and it's used today in modern pyrotechnics. To light up the sky, and part of the ingredient is charcoal. It was used in gunpowder. Again, the Chinese developed this, and it came down as a part of the explosive device. And because of its history, there's actually have been some places where states have banned the sale of charcoal, thinking that it could be used by nefarious sources in some sort of a bomb. But charcoal will not explode by itself. It has to be combined with something else to make an explosive. And activated charcoal will not explode. And that's mostly what we'll be talking about through this program, the difference between charcoal and activated charcoal. Now, charcoal has many different functions, and one of the functions that a lot of people are aware of is water filtration. Back in the 1800s, these travelers across the Pacific or the Atlantic on long voyages would take a wooden stave barrel, and they would light a fire in the inside, and then they would put it out, and the inside of the barrel would be coated with a thin layer of charcoal. And believe it or not, that thin layer of that charcoal on the inside of that barrel was just enough to keep that water pure and keep it from going rancid for months at sea. And if for some reason a barrel of water wasn't treated this way and the water did go rancid, well, they would go to the blacksmith on board the ship, get a few pieces of charcoal, and throw it in the barrel. And after a few days, the water would have turned back to tasting water again. No smell and no bad flavor. So it has had that use as a water filter for a long time. Consequently, it's used in aquariums of all sizes. In our business, in fact, we sell charcoal, activated charcoal to large aquariums, commercial aquariums, where they have shows and everything else. So it's not only used in something in your home. In the back of this tank, there's a small charcoal filter that keeps that water clear, crystal clear, so that you can enjoy the beauty of this undersea world. One of our customers was a wastewater treatment facility in Bangor, Maine, and they were trying to do a public relations program in showing the public that the water that came out of their sewage treatment plants was usable. It was not pollutant to the downstream on the river. And to do that, they got a tank and they took water from a sewage treatment. They filled the tank and then they put in trout and salmon smolt into the tank, and they grew perfectly fine. There was no sickness in the fish at all. They grew to the right stage, and then they let them out and put them into the river. A great demonstration to show people that water that's treated with charcoal is safe, pure, perfectly safe. And it can be your swimming pool, it can be Olympic swimming pool. Again, many of these pools are treated with charcoal to take out a lot of the stuff that ends up in a swimming pool from all those people in it all the time. Make it healthy, keep it healthy. Well, how about water? You know, water is vital to life, and today water is becoming a premium in this world, at least pure water. A lot of the water is used for commercial purposes, and so whatever's left over, this very fragile amount of water that we have for all these people in this world, can easily become contaminated, and it wouldn't be enough for everybody to drink. So most people are not aware that all bottled water has at one point in the stage been purified with charcoal to take out a number of different things. It could be taking out smell. It might take out some bad flavor, but also it is now used, it's very important in removing chemicals from the water, especially drugs that end up back in the water table, and we don't want them in the water that we're drinking. We don't want to be medicated by drinking bottled water. So that is one of the methods. It's not the only method, but one of the filters that is used in purifying water so that we can drink it. Now, if you happen to be up on the space station, the International Space Station, you have to drink water up there just like we have to drink it down here. And you have to breathe air up there as well. And of course, there's no water up there and there's no air up there unless you blast it off in a rocket and take it up there so that these men and women can drink and breathe the air. Well, again, how much do you think a liter of water would cost in outer space on the International Space Station? How much do you think this water would cost? Any ideas? Well, let me tell you, this bottle of water in space would cost between $5,000 and $10,000 per liter. Now, when you're done drinking with $10,000 worth of tax dollars, what do you want to do with it? Throw it out the window? Well, you can't do that. Maybe you could eject it. But do you really want to throw $5,000 to $10,000 away every time you drink it? What's the natural thing you want to do? You want to reuse it as much as possible. In fact, that's what happens. You drink the water, and as the body uses it, you recycle it. And you keep recycling that water a dozen times, 100 times, maybe 1,000 times. You'll recycle that water over and over again so it can be used. I think you get the idea. Charcoal is not the only process that is used to make that water healthy again and clear and usable. There are other processes that purify that water, but charcoal is one of them. How many millions and millions of dollars is charcoal saving the United States aerospace exploration? And you can see why it will be on board that first manned flight to Mars, because they can't take enough water with them, obviously. They have to reuse what they've got. It's a long trip. Well, the same is true for whether you're actually drinking water or other things out, not just up in space, but also at the bottom of the ocean. You need pure water. And people say, well, how do I know that charcoal is safe? Well, actually, charcoal is put in food, too, as well, for coloring. And in this picture, I love the color, the contrast between the black and the orange. And I asked the question, just so everybody knows that we're on track, which one of these jelly beans has charcoal in it? And some people think I'm pulling a trick on them, and so they'll say orange. But in fact, it is the black jelly beans that have the charcoal in them. And charcoal is used in other foods for coloring, such as expensive caviar. I'm not a caviar eater, but nevertheless, to give it a uniform color, they'll put charcoal in it. Here is jams that they make to make it a little bit darker. And oh, really? Here's a new customer. I can't say that's proprietary, but anyway, our customer's customer began exploring the idea of putting charcoal in their buns and in their cheese slices. And so we're just waiting now for some new dishes coming out called Black Snake Spaghetti. How about Black Angus Veggie Burger, or Charcoal Forest Cake, or Charcoal Yummy Gummies? I don't know, but it's interesting to see that some of our customers are developing foods and drinks with charcoal in it to give it coloring, not just for coloring, but also as a side, something that will help to detox the body. I don't know how long this fad will go on, but for now, there's a very large interest in charcoal as a coloring agent in different foods. Now, here's another skill testing question. Here we have 2 glasses of grape juice, and I asked the question, and so far nobody has ever got the answer correct. And we've asked this question to literally thousands and thousands of people, and not one of them has given us the right answer. Which one of these grape juices has charcoal in it? And so the people think, well, it may be a trick question, but obviously the one on the right does not have charcoal in it. It has no color. So it's got to be the one on the left. Well, the answer is actually neither one of these grape juices has charcoal in it. But the grape juice on the right used to be red until it was filtered through a charcoal filter, which took out the juice on the left. Now let me get this right. The juice on the right was red, just like its neighbor, until it was filtered through charcoal, and the charcoal took out all the color. And this is one of the primary uses for charcoal in the food industry. Here's fine vegetable oils. Now you can imagine a mountain of olives all sitting out there, and out being picked, and they're sitting there waiting to be go through the press and make olive oil. Do you think every one of those olives is in absolute pristine condition with no rancidity at all? That every single one of those organic olives is pure? Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but they're not. A lot of these oils have a rancid flavor in the time lag that it takes to get from the harvest to the manufacturing process. There can be rancidity buildups. There can be odors. There can be flavors that you do not want in that very organic vegetable oil. And so they use charcoal to take those unwanted odors out, those unwanted flavors and tastes, until you get a fine vegetable oil you can pour over your beautiful looking salad, and it gives it that beautiful nutty flavor. Again, how did you ever think that charcoal would be involved in your fresh garden salad, at least at the restaurant? Now, we are going to talk a little bit later on in the program about charcoal and its use in gardening or commercial agriculture, and also in animal husbandry. But for now, we're going to keep moving through this program and see how other industry uses it, and then finally how we can use it. The pharmaceutical industry really would come to a stop without charcoal. Charcoal is used in the fine chemicals industry, as we've learned through our business, to take out unwanted chemicals. Now, charcoals are designed almost like designer clothing. Charcoal can be made for a certain size molecule. It can target a molecule and take that molecule out and leave everything else behind. If it's done scientifically, this industry has been able to develop these techniques, these protocols, to be able to take out unwanted colors, unwanted chemicals, and flavors, so that you end up with a pure chemical as far as the drug industry is concerned. But it's not just the drug industry. How about the nutraceuticals? The same thing happens there, that many of these vitamins and supplements have been polished, let me put it that way, polished with charcoal to take out unwanted chemicals that might be a detractor in selling them to the general public. Now, probably the largest single use of charcoal here in America, and in most developed countries is for cleaning the air that we breathe. The air that comes out of these coal-fired hydroelectric, not hydroelectric, it's a coal-fired generator, that's it. These large stacks that you see going up into the air, before that contaminated air goes up into the atmosphere and we breathe it, it goes through these charcoal filters and takes out all these dangerous chemicals, comes up into the air, and we can breathe it safely without any worry of being poisoned. I mentioned earlier about the International Space Station. Well, underneath the ocean, at the ocean depths, the sailors need to breathe air as well. And with all those people on board a submarine, in a short time, carbon dioxide builds up. And if it wasn't for charcoal scrubbers to remove the carbon dioxide, nuclear submarines wouldn't function, at least not with men on board. So whether it's outer space or inner space, everywhere we go, charcoal is being used as a cleansing agent or a polishing agent to make our world healthier and more environmentally friendly. Here's a HEPA air filter developed by the American Atomic Energy Commission, I believe. And it filters out very, 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 very fine particles, but it also includes charcoal, and these charcoal particles are able to latch onto chemicals, volatile chemicals, including radioactive particles. Take them out of the air. Here is a new electric hybrid car, and these fuel cells that they use to drive these vehicles absolutely require charcoal to take out sulfides, I believe it is, so that these fuel cells can remain effective for longer periods of time. These are things that we had no idea about until we got into the business and learned of all these different commercial applications for charcoal. Now, one of our programs, I'd asked you at the lead-in to that program, what do these things have in common? And I showed you several slides, and one of them was this picture of an avalanche, a snow avalanche at one of the national parks. Charcoal, believe it or not, is used in avalanche control in a novel way than what's used here. They use explosives to set off these avalanches. But when they use charcoal, they don't want to impact the environment using salts, which will melt the snow and then contaminate the soils with these large amounts of salts. And so what they do is they spread blankets of charcoal over areas that will cause the snow to melt, to make a firm crust so that it won't actually collapse and cause an avalanche. And one of our customers is the National Parks Service. Now, charcoal has a long history, but at one point, charcoal transitioned to its new cousin called activated charcoal. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'll get this right. Activated charcoal had its big start in World War I and II as gas masks. In the chemical warfare that was going on, they discovered if they would take coconut activated charcoal and make it into a granular form and put it in these canisters on these masks, that these soldiers could breathe in this deadly gas, mustard gas and whatever else, and it wouldn't kill them, wouldn't even give them a stomach ache. And that's where activated charcoal got started. But that's a long time ago, and here it is being used in our 20th century. But what's a little bit different in this picture of these men in the Iran war is not only that they have charcoal masks on, a little bit different design, but the charcoal has actually been spun into fibers and it's quilted into their uniforms. So to protect them not only from chemicals, but biological warfare as well. The young nurse at the top there is wearing a charcoal mask using a fabric, the same fabric that's used in those soldiers' uniforms. And that fabric and that charcoal mask will filter out chemicals just as fast as that canister mask by that soldier in World War I and II. My wife, Kimberly, has done a lot of work in developing this mask, and we're going to tell you a little bit more about how it's being used in different places. So again, you can see that charcoal has saved our lives in many different ways. This is just an ad that we run to show the effectiveness and maybe catch people's attention about the effectiveness of charcoal in cleaning the air that we breathe. Now, again, back up in space, there's no air to breathe. If you're going to breathe anything, you have to take it with you. And again, whether it's a liter of water or a pound of condensed air, it's going to cost about $10,000 to blast that 1 pound of air up into space so that you can put it in your space pack and breathe it over and over again, because it's being filtered, among other things, through a activated charcoal filter. And one of our customers actually is NASA. They purchased a charcoal fabric for well, I can't tell you. It's proprietary information. But nevertheless, it is being used in outer space as a way of prolonging and preserving life. Now, before we go into our next segment, I just want to pause here for a break. We've looked a little bit at some of the many different uses and applications of charcoal, but now I'd like to pause here and we'll move into looking at charcoal as a medicinal, how it came up through time, its early uses in ancient times, up into our times here in the 21st century. Charcoal is a medicinal par excellence. It is used extensively, and we'll explore that in this next segment of this program. Stay tuned.